The sound of shattering crystal cut through the humid air of the service hallway like a gunshot. It was loud, violent, and followed immediately by the wet, heavy splash of liquid hitting the floor. But Kwon Tae-Oh didn't hear the glass breaking. He didn't even feel the cold, expensive Merlot soaking through his pristine white trousers, ruining a bespoke suit that cost more than most cars. All he felt was the hand. It had been an accident. A clumsy, terrified accident. The girl in the gold dress had turned the corner too fast, slipping on the polished marble. She had crashed into him, the tray flying, and as she scrambled to catch her balance, her hand had slipped. Her palm, warm and desperate, had pressed firmly against the front of his trousers, right at the junction of his thighs. Time didn't just stop, it evaporated. The hallway, the gala music fading in the distance, the smell of wine, it all vanished. The only thing left in the universe was the sensation of her hand. For 8 years, Kwon Tae-Oh had felt nothing. He was the Ice Prince of Seoul, a man whose body was a frozen wasteland, numb to pleasure, numb to desire, numb to the very concept of intimacy. Doctors had called it trauma-induced impotence. He called it a curse. He was a dead man walking, a king with no heir, a weapon with no trigger. But now, a jolt of electricity, hot and jagged, tore up his spine. It was violent. It was shocking. It was the most painful, beautiful thing he had ever felt. His breath hitched in his throat, a ragged, audible gasp that sounded like a drowning man breaking the surface of the water. His pupils blew wide, swallowing the irises until his eyes were black pits of shock. And then the impossible happened. Blood rushed south. Not a trickle, but a flood. It was aggressive, demanding, and immediate. In the span of a single heartbeat, the dead wasteland woke up. He grew heavy. He grew hard. He throbbed with a ferocity that made his knees weak. He looked down, his mouth slightly open, his stoic mask shattered. The girl was on her knees, hyperventilating. She was frantically dabbing at his ruined suit with a napkin, her curls bouncing with every erratic movement. Oh my God, I am so sorry. She was babbling, her voice a mix of Korean and English panic. I didn't see you. The floor. It was slippery. Please, sir, I can fix this. She didn't know. She didn't know that her hand, currently hovering inches from his groin, was holding a miracle. Don't, Tae-Oh rasped. His voice was unrecognizable. It was a growl, thick with 8 years of starvation. She froze. She looked up. For the first time, he actually saw her. She wasn't one of the plastic, perfect heiresses in the ballroom. She was chaos. Deep, glowing skin that looked like polished mahogany under the fluorescent lights. Wild, defying gravity curls that framed a face etched with genuine terror. She was Afro-Korean, a rarity in his world. She smelled like rain and shea butter and terror. And that smell. God, that smell hit him harder than the wine. Sir? She whispered, her eyes wide. Are you going to kill me? Tae-Oh couldn't speak. He was fighting a war inside his own body. The erection was painful now, straining against the wet fabric of his trousers. He needed to hide it. He needed to get away. But more than anything, he wanted to grab her hand and press it back against him. He wanted to see if the spark would turn into a fire. Who are you? He choked out, gripping the wall for support. Nneka, she stammered, shrinking back. Nneka Kim. I'm just a server. Please, I didn't mean to touch you. There. She gestured vaguely to his lap, and the movement made his breath hitch again. Get out, Tae-Oh whispered. Nneka blinked. What? Get out. He roared, the sound echoing off the tile walls. Run. Before I change my mind. He wasn't threatening her life. He was protecting her from his own sudden, terrifying hunger. If she stayed, he didn't know what he would do. He felt feral. Nneka didn't wait. She scrambled to her feet, slipping on the wine, and bolted down the hallway, her gold dress fluttering behind her like the tail of a comet. Tae-Oh watched her go. He watched the sway of her hips, the desperate energy in her run. And as she rounded the corner and vanished, the ache in his body didn't fade. It throbbed harder. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was crouching. He put his head in his hands, laughing. It was a dark, breathless, manic laugh. I'm not dead, he whispered to the empty hallway. I'm not dead. If you've ever felt a moment that completely changed your life in a split second, hit that like button right now. And if you want to see what the Ice Prince does with this new fire, make sure you're subscribed. because things are about to get incredibly intense. 20 minutes later, the bathroom of the VIP suite felt like a prison cell. Tae-Oh stood in front of the mirror, gripping the black marble sink until his knuckles turned white. He had splashed cold water on his face 10 times. He had tried to think about baseball, about tax audits, about his dead wife. Nothing worked. He looked down. He was still hard. It was relentless. It was undeniable. Director Han, Tae-Oh said into his phone. His hand was shaking so badly he had to put the device on speaker and set it on the counter. Boss? We secured the perimeter. Did you want to change? Han's voice was calm, professional. The girl, Tae-Oh said. He stared at his own reflection. His eyes looked wild. The one in the gold dress. Nneka Kim. We tracked her, sir. She took the employee exit. She's currently waiting at the bus stop on 8100. Should we? Handle her? Handle her? Tae-Oh laughed again, that strange, jagged sound. No. You don't break the only cure you found in a decade, Han. Sir? Bring her to me. The penthouse. No. Is this about the suit, sir? We can just send a bill to the agency. It's not about the suit. Tae-Oh shouted, then caught himself. He took a deep breath, forcing the ice back into his voice, though the fire was burning him alive from the inside out. She has something I need. Just bring her. And Han, be gentle. If you bruise her, I will dismantle you. Understood, boss? Tae-Oh hung up. He looked at the mirror one last time. He had just his collar. The predator was back. But this time, he wasn't hunting for territory or money. He was hunting for the witch who had cast a spell on his body without even trying. Nneka Kim sat on the cold metal bench of the bus stop, hugging her knees. The rain in Seoul was relentless in the summer. It soaked through her thin hoodie, chilling her to the bone. She checked her bank account app on her cracked phone screen. Balance, 320,000 KRW. She groaned, dropping her head onto her knees. Stupid, Nneka. You stupid, clumsy idiot. That suit was probably Armani. Or Zegna. It probably cost 5 million won. If the agency fired her, which they definitely would, she wouldn't make rent. And if she didn't make rent, she couldn't save for Halmioni's surgery. Her grandmother was the only family she had left. Her father had gone back to Lagos before she was born, and her mother had died when she was 10. It was just Nneka and the old Korean woman who had raised her, loved her, and defended her mixed hair and dark skin against every neighbor who whispered behind their backs. And now, Halmioni's heart was failing. I need a miracle, Nneka whispered to the rain. I just need one break. A black Genesis G90 pulled up to the curb, tires hissing on the wet asphalt. The window rolled down. Nneka stiffened. She knew that car. She knew the tinted windows. That was a Mafia car. Miss Kim? She looked up. A massive man in a black suit was holding an umbrella over the open door. He wasn't looking at her with disgust. He was looking at her with respect? No, caution. Like she was a bomb that might go off. I don't have money, Nneka said, her voice trembling. If this is about the suit, please tell Mr. Kwon I will work it off. I can clean floors. I can wash dishes. Mr. Kwon doesn't need a dishwasher, the man said. He requests your presence. Immediately. Requests? Nneka stood up, backing away. Or demands. With Mr. Kwon, there is rarely a difference. Please, Miss Kim. It is raining. And he is not a patient man. Nneka looked down the empty street. The bus wasn't coming for another 20 minutes. She looked at the massive car. She thought about her bank account. If he was going to kill her, he would have done it in the alley behind the hotel. This was something else. Fine, she whispered, her stomach twisting in knots. But if I don't come back, my ghost is going to be very annoying. The guard didn't blink. Get in. The penthouse was silent. It was a fortress of glass and steel perched high above the Han River. It smelled of expensive leather and ozone. Nneka stood in the middle of the living room, feeling small. Her sneakers squeaked on the gray stone floor. She was still wearing the oversized hoodie over her gold dress, looking like a drowned rat in a palace. You're shivering. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Nneka spun around. Kwon Tae-Oh stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. He wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at her reflection in the glass. He had changed. The suit was gone. He wore loose black trousers and a black silk shirt that clung to his broad shoulders. It was unbuttoned at the top, revealing the column of his pale throat. He held a glass of water in his hand. Mr. Kwon, Nneka bowed, almost bending in half. I am so sorry. I know the suit was. Stop talking about the suit, he said. He turned around. His eyes. Nneka swallowed hard. She had seen men look at her with lust before, usually gross men in bars who had a fetish for foreign girls. But this was different. This was hunger. He looked at her like a man who had been wandering in the desert for 40 days, and she was a glass of ice water. He walked toward her. He didn't rush. He moved with a terrifying grace, closing the distance between them until he was standing just inside her personal space. He inhaled deeply. "You smell like rain," he murmured, his voice low and vibrating in his chest. I was waiting for the bus," Nneka squeaked. "Give me your hand." "What?" "Your hand," Tae-Oh commanded. He held his own hand out, palm up. His fingers were long, elegant, and steady. Nneka hesitated. "Are you going to break it?" Tae-Oh's lips corked up in a humorless smile. "If I wanted to hurt you, Nneka Kim, I wouldn't need to touch you to do it. Give me your hand." She reached out. Her dark skin contrasted sharply against his pale palm. He wrapped his fingers around hers. Zap. There it was again. That strange, static shock. Nneka gasped. Tae-Oh closed his eyes and hissed, his head tipping back. "It wasn't a fluke," he whispered to the ceiling. "What wasn't?" Nneka asked, terrified. "Sir, you're scaring me. Why is your hand so cold? And why is yours so warm?" He opened his eyes. They were dark, dilated, and focused entirely on her mouth. "You have no idea what you are, do you?" He pulled her closer. Not roughly, but firmly. He placed her hand on his chest, right over his heart. It was hammering. Thump, thump, thump. It was beating so fast she thought it might bruise his ribs. "Do you feel that?" he asked. "Yes," she breathed. 8 years, he said. And there was a crack in his voice, a fissure of raw, bleeding vulnerability that shocked her. "For 8 years. My heart has been a calm, steady drum. Nothing moved it. Fear didn't speed it up. Anger didn't speed it up. Desire. Desire was a memory." He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could feel his breath on her cheek. "And then you bump into me," he whispered, "and suddenly I am dying." I should go," Nneka said, panic rising. This was too intimate. This was too much. "No," Tae-Oh said. He didn't let go of her hand. "You can't go. I won't let you. You can't keep me here." Nneka tried to pull away, her spirit flaring up. "This is kidnapping. I have a life. I have a grandmother who needs me." "Min-jae Kim," Tae-Oh said. Nneka froze. "Don't you say her name." "Asen Medical Center," he continued, reciting the facts coldly. "She needs a valve replacement. She has been on the waiting list for 6 months, but you can't afford the deposit. You are 3 months behind on rent. You have exactly 320,000 won to your name." Nneka felt the blood drain from her face. "How? I am the king of this city now. I know everything." He let go of her hand and walked to the coffee table. He picked up a piece of paper, a check. He held it out to her. 50 million won, he said. Nneka stared at the paper. "What? 50 million won. Enough for the surgery. Enough for a private nurse. Enough to pay your rent for 2 years. What do I have to do?" Nneka asked, her voice trembling. I won't sleep with you." Tae-Oh looked at her, and for a second, a look of genuine pain crossed his face. "I don't want you to sleep with me. I can't do that. Not yet." "Then what?" "I want you to be here," he said. "I want you to live in this house. I want you to sit next to me when I work. I want you to hold my hand when the insomnia gets too bad. I want you to be near me." "Why?" "Because," Tae-Oh said, walking back to her, looming over her like a dark cloud, "you are the only battery that charges me. You are the cure." He held the check closer. "Take it," he whispered. "Save your grandmother. And save me." Nneka looked at the check. She looked at his eyes, desperate, haunted, and pleading. She thought of her grandmother coughing in that damp basement apartment. She reached out and took the paper. "What is the first rule?" she asked softly. Tae-Oh smiled, and the temperature in the room seemed to rise 10 degrees. "Rule number 1, he murmured, reaching out to tuck a curl behind her ear. "Don't run away when the dragon wakes up." The first night in the penthouse felt less like a luxury vacation and more like being cryogenically frozen. Nneka unpacked her meager belongings in the guest suite, which was larger than her entire childhood home. The room was beautiful, in a terrifying, sterile way. Everything was white, gray, or black. The sheets were 1,000 thread count Egyptian cotton, cool to the touch. The view of the Han River was breathtaking, the city lights shimmering on the black water like scattered diamonds. But it was quiet. Too quiet. She sat on the edge of the massive bed, staring at her phone. She had just transferred the deposit to Asen Medical Center. Halmiani was scheduled for surgery in 2 days. They had given her a private room with a river view. The nurse had sounded confused on the phone, asking if Nneka had won the lottery. Sort of, Nneka whispered to the empty room. But the ticket price was my soul. She looked at the door. It connected to the hallway, and just down that hallway was his room. The master suite. The dragon's lair. She hadn't seen Kwon Tae-Oh since he handed her the check 3 hours ago. He had retreated into his office, muttering about a conference call with partners in Shanghai. But before he left, he had given her one order. Keep your phone on. If I text you, you come. Immediately. Nneka shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. She was wearing her favorite oversized t-shirt and shorts, her curls tied up in a messy pineapple on top of her head. She felt underdressed for this museum of a house. Buzz. The phone in her hand vibrated so hard she jumped. One new message from the boss. It was a single word, office. Nneka swallowed hard. She looked at the time. It was 2 a.m. Okay, she breathed, standing up. Just a job. He's just a vampire who needs a battery. You can do this, Nneka. Do it for Halmiani. She walked out into the hallway. The house was dark, lit only by the ambient glow of the city outside. Her bare feet made no sound on the polished stone. She reached the double mahogany doors at the end of the hall. They were slightly ajar. She pushed one open. The office was thick with cigarette smoke. It smelled of tobacco, leather, and high-stress pheromones. Tae-Oh was sitting behind a massive desk that looked like a slab of obsidian. He was wearing reading glasses, which somehow made him look even more dangerous, and his silk shirt was rolled up to his elbows. He was typing furiously on a laptop, but his leg was bouncing under the desk. A restless, agitated rhythm. You called? Nneka stood in the doorway, clutching the hem of her t-shirt. Tae-Oh stopped typing. He didn't look up immediately. He took a long drag from the cigarette perched in the crystal ashtray, exhaling a cloud of gray smoke. Then slowly he turned his chair. His eyes swept over her. They started at her bare feet, traveled up her bare legs, lingered on the curve of her hips hidden by the t-shirt, and finally landed on her face. He looked wrecked. His eyes were red-rimmed. His jaw was tight with tension. Close the door, he rasped. Nneka obeyed, the heavy click of the latch sounding like a prison cell locking. Come here. She walked forward, stopping in front of the desk. Is there something you need filed, Mr. Kwon? Or maybe you need coffee? I don't need coffee, he muttered, rubbing his temples. I have been awake for 3 days. Caffeine is nothing for me. He gestured to the space beside his chair. Closer. Nneka stepped around the desk. She was now standing right next to him. He swiveled the chair so he was facing her. He was sitting, she was standing, which put his face level with her stomach. The proximity was instant. The air in the room seemed to thicken, becoming heavy and charged. I can't focus, Tae-Oh admitted, his voice low and frustrated. He sounded angry at himself. I have to review these contracts for the Incheon port expansion. It's $1 billion deal. One mistake, and the sharks in the boardroom will eat me alive. But I look at the words, and they're swimming. And, you think I can help with $1 billion port deal? Nneka asked skeptically. Sir, I have a degree in art history, not logistics. I don't need your brain right now, Nneka, he said, reaching out. I need your frequency. He grabbed her wrist. It wasn't gentle, but it wasn't painful. It was desperate. He pulled her forward until her thighs bumped against his knees. Stay, he commanded. He didn't let go of her wrist. He kept his left hand wrapped around her warm skin, resting it on the armrest of his chair, while his right hand went back to the mouse pad. Just stand there, he murmured, his eyes going back to the screen. Nneka stood frozen. This was the weirdest job description in history. She looked down at him. From this angle, she could see the dark circles under his eyes, the slight tremble in his hand as he tried to scroll through the document. Minutes ticked by. The silence was heavy, broken only by the click of the mouse and the hum of the hard drive. But slowly, the trembling in his hand stopped. His breathing, which had been shallow and jagged, deepened. His shoulders dropped an inch. The contact, just his hand on her wrist, was doing something to him. It was acting like a sedative and a stimulant all at once. It works, he whispered to himself, scrolling faster now. The fog is clearing. Nneka shifted her weight from one foot to the other. She was tired. Don't move, Tae-Oh snapped, tightening his grip. I'm not a statue, Mr. Kwon, Nneka retorted, her fatigue making her bold. And my legs are tired. If you want me to stay, I need to sit. Tae-Oh paused. He looked up at her, surprised by her defiance. Most people would rather jump off the balcony than talk back to him. A slow, dark smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. You want to sit? Yes. He tapped his thigh. Sit. Nneka's eyes widened. Absolutely not. There are no other chairs in this room, he said calmly, gesturing to the empty minimalist space. And if you leave my personal space, the fog comes back. I need to finish this section. Sit. On my lap. I am an employee, not a mistress. Nneka hissed, stepping back. Tae-Oh didn't get angry. He just looked at her with those bottomless, hungry eyes. You are my battery. And right now, the battery is too far away from the machine. Nneka, please. That last word broke her. He said it with such raw exhaustion. Fine, she huffed. But hands to yourself, Ice Prince. She perched awkwardly on his left thigh, trying to keep as much distance as possible. She held her body stiff, staring straight ahead at the bookshelf. But as soon as she settled, Tae-Oh let out a groan that vibrated through his entire chest and straight into her body. He dropped his forehead against her shoulder, inhaling deeply. God, he breathed against her neck. You are so warm. Nneka felt goosebumps erupt all over her skin. His nose was brushing the sensitive skin below her ear. His breath was hot. And underneath her, she could feel the hard muscles of his thigh. And something else. Something hard. Something pressing against her hip. Mr. Kwon. She warned, her voice trembling. Ignore it, he mumbled into her skin, not moving away. It's just a side effect. It's been 8 years, Nneka. My body is overcompensating. Just let me finish this page. He didn't move his head. He kept his face buried in the crook of her neck, smelling her, breathing her in, while his right hand clicked through the contract. Nneka sat there, paralyzed by the intimacy. She could feel his eyelashes fluttering against her skin. She could feel the steady, powerful thrum of his heart against her side. It was racing. And the terrifying part? Her heart was racing too. She found herself relaxing, just a fraction. She looked at the screen. That paragraph. Section 4B. It contradicts Section 2A. Tae-Oh paused. He lifted his head, blinking. He looked at the screen, then at her. What? The indemnity clause. She pointed a shaky finger at the monitor. It says the shipping company is liable for weather delays, but Section 2A says weather is force majeure. You're going to get sued. Tae-Oh squinted at the text. He read it. Then he read it again. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. You speak legalese? I read a lot, she shrugged. And I read fast. Tae-Oh looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time, the hunger in his eyes was mixed with something else. Curiosity. Respect. You are full of surprises, little witch, he murmured. He didn't move his hand from her waist. In fact, his thumb began to stroke the fabric of her t-shirt, a subconscious, possessive rhythm. Stay, he said softly. Read the next page for me. And for the next hour, that was how they stayed. The ruthlessly dangerous mafia boss and the struggling art student, curled together in a leather chair at 3 a.m., fixing a billion-dollar contract while the sexual tension in the room grew thick enough to choke on. If you are loving the chemistry between Tae-Oh and Nneka, you need to subscribe right now. We are just getting started, and trust me, the tension is only going to get higher. Leave a comment below. Do you think Nneka should have sat on his lap? Let me know. The next few days fell into a bizarre, intoxicating routine. Nneka would wake up, check on her grandmother, who had successfully undergone surgery and was recovering beautifully, and then she would report for duty. Duty usually involved sitting in Tae-Oh's office while he worked, or riding in the back of his armored car to meetings. She became his shadow. His men, Director Han and the other enforcers, watched her with wide eyes. They saw the change in their boss. The Ice Prince was thawing. He was eating. He was sleeping as long as she was in the room. His temper, usually lethal, had cooled into a focused, razor-sharp intensity. But there was a problem. The food. Tae-Oh's chef, a French-trained perfectionist, only made bland, healthy, visually exquisite meals. Poached whitefish. Steamed asparagus. Clear broth. Nneka was dying. She was Nigerian and Korean. She needed spice. She needed flavor. She needed something that punched her in the throat. On the 4th night, she couldn't take it anymore. Tae-Oh was out late at a meeting. The kitchen was empty. Nneka raided the pantry. She found rice. She found onions. She found a hidden stash of gochujang red chili paste, and, miraculously, a bag of dried habanero peppers that the chef probably used for decoration. It's go time, she whispered. She set to work. She made a hybrid dish, a fiery kimchi jollof rice. She fried the onions until they were caramelized, threw in the peppers, added the fermented kimchi, and let the rice soak up the red, angry, delicious sauce. The smell wafted through the ventilation system. It was pungent. It was spicy. It smelled like home. She was just scooping a massive bowl for herself, standing at the kitchen island in her pajamas, when she heard footsteps. Tae-Oh stood in the doorway. He had just come home. He was wearing his suit trousers and white shirt, tie undone, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired, but his nose was twitching. What? He asked, staring at the pot. Is that smell? It's dinner, Nneka said, taking a bite. She moaned around the spoon. Real dinner. Not that bird food your chef makes. Tae-Oh walked into the kitchen. He stopped next to her. He looked into the pot. It looked like magma. It smells like a chemical weapon, he observed, but he didn't step away. He leaned closer to her. You smell like spices. Is that a complaint? Nneka challenged, holding the spoon like a microphone. No, Tae-Oh murmured. He watched her swallow. He watched her throat move. His eyes darkened. I haven't eaten all day. Do you want some? She gestured to the pot. Careful. It bites. Tae-Oh didn't grab a bowl. He moved fast. One hand gripped the edge of the counter, trapping her. The other hand reached out and grabbed her wrist, the hand holding the spoon. He guided her hand toward his own mouth. Feed me, he commanded softly. Nneka's breath hitched. It's really spicy, Tae-Oh. You're not used to. I said, feed me. She lifted the spoon. He opened his mouth and took the bite. She watched him chew. She expected him to cough. She expected him to reach for water. Instead, his eyes locked onto hers. A flush rose up his neck. A bead of sweat formed on his temple. The heat of the peppers hit him, but he didn't look away. He swallowed. He licked his lips. They were turning red from the spice. It burns, he whispered, leaning in until his forehead rested against hers. I told you, Nneka breathed, unable to move. I like it, he groaned. It makes me feel awake. Everything with you makes me feel awake. He reached out, his thumb brushing a smudge of red sauce from the corner of her lip. He looked at the sauce on his thumb, then put it in his mouth, sucking it off slowly. The eroticism of the moment was overwhelming. It wasn't a kiss, but it felt more intimate than any kiss Nneka had ever had. More, he whispered. They stood there for 20 minutes. Nneka feeding the most feared man in Seoul spicy rice from a wooden spoon, while he watched her with the devotion of a starving wolf. That night, the storm came back. It was a typhoon-season downpour. Thunder shook the penthouse walls. Nneka was in her room, trying to sleep, when her door creaked open. She sat up. Tae-Oh? He was standing in the doorway, clutching a pillow. He looked like a lost child, if lost children were 6'2" and built like mixed martial artists. I can't sleep, he said simply. The thunder. Do you want me to come to the office? Nneka asked, rubbing her eyes. No office tonight, he said, walking into her room. I'm too tired to work. He walked to the side of her bed. Nneka stiffened. Mr. Kwon. The contract said, live-in assistant. It did not say bed warmer. I don't want sex, Nneka, he said wearily, dropping the pillow onto the mattress beside her. I can't control myself enough for that yet. If I try to take you now, I will hurt you. I am too hungry. He climbed onto the bed, fully clothed. He lay on top of the covers, on the far side of the massive mattress. Then what are you doing? She whispered, pulling the duvet up to her chin. Proximity, he muttered, closing his eyes. Just stay on your side. Let me hear you breathe. Nneka lay back down, her heart pounding. She turned her back to him, staring at the wall. She listened to the rain. Minutes passed. Then she felt the mattress dip. A heavy arm draped over her waist. A chest pressed against her back. He had spooned her. Tae-Oh, she warned. Sure, he mumbled into her hair. He pulled her flesh against him. She could feel it. He was hard. Rock hard. It pressed against her lower back, a rigid, unyielding bar of heat. You said no sex, she whispered. This isn't sex, he groaned, burying his face in her curls. This is torture. But it's the only way the nightmares stay away. He entangled his legs with hers. He wrapped his arm tighter, his hand resting flat on her stomach, possessive and heavy. Good night, Nneka, he breathed. And within 30 seconds, the man who hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night for 8 years was sound asleep. Nneka lay there, wide awake, trapped in the arms of a sleeping dragon, feeling the proof of his desire pressing against her with every breath. She knew, with terrifying certainty, that this arrangement wasn't going to last 6 months. The fire was getting too hot, and soon it was going to burn the house down. The morning sun hit the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, turning the gray room into a blinding box of light. Nneka woke up first. She didn't open her eyes immediately. She just lay there, cataloging the sensations. The bed was warm. The sheets smelled like bergamot and expensive detergent. And there was a weight on her stomach. She cracked one eye open. A heavy muscular arm was draped over her waist, holding her pinned to the mattress. She turned her head slowly, afraid to breathe. Kwon Tae-Oh was asleep. Deeply asleep. For a man who terrified the entire criminal underworld of Seoul, he looked almost innocent in his sleep. His harsh frown lines were smoothed out. His lips were slightly parted. His dark hair fell over his forehead, softening the sharp angles of his face. Nneka's heart did a traitorous little flip. Don't do it, she told herself. Don't catch feelings. He's a client. You are a battery. This is a transaction. But then he shifted. He mumbled something in his sleep, a low, Korean grumble, and pulled her tighter. His nose buried itself in the crook of her neck, inhaling sharply even in his unconscious state. His leg threw itself over hers, tangling them together in a knot of limbs. And inevitably, she felt it. The morning ridge. Hard. Unyielding. Pressing against her lower back with the insistence of a loaded weapon. Nneka held her breath. Tae-Oh's eyes snapped open. There was no groggy transition. 1 second he was asleep. The next he was awake, his body tense, his instincts firing. He froze, realizing who he was holding, realizing what he was doing against her back. He didn't pull away. Morning, he rasped. His morning voice was an octave lower than his normal voice, a rumble that vibrated straight through Nneka's spine. Morning, Nneka squeaked. You're crushing my bladder. Tae-Oh exhaled a short breath that might have been a laugh. He slowly untangled his limbs, rolling onto his back and staring at the ceiling. He threw an arm over his eyes. 6 hours, he muttered. I slept for 6 hours. I haven't done that since 2015. He turned his head to look at her. His gaze was heavy, hooded with sleep and lingering arousal. You are better than any pill, Nneka Kim. I should charge extra for the cuddling, she joked, sitting up and trying to fix her wild hair. That wasn't in the contract. Update the invoice, Tae-Oh said lazily. He reached out, his hand wrapping around her ankle. His thumb stroked the bone. Get dressed. We're going out. Out? To the office? No, he sat up, the sheet falling to his waist, revealing an expanse of pale, sculpted muscle that made Nneka's mouth go dry. To the tailor. You can't wear oversized hoodies to the shareholders' gala tomorrow night. If you're going to stand next to me, you need to look like you own the room. The boutique in Cheongdam-dong was the kind of place that didn't have price tags. The air smelled like money. The floors were marble. There was only one dress on each rack. Nneka felt out of place the moment they walked in. She was wearing jeans and a blouse, but next to the polished staff and the pristine decor, she felt like an intruder. Tae-Oh, however, owned the space. He walked in wearing a charcoal three-piece suit, his presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. 2 shop assistants rushed over, bowing low. Mr. Kwon. Welcome. We didn't know you were coming. I need a gown, Tae-Oh said, cutting through the pleasantries. He gestured to Nneka, who was lingering by the door. For her. The assistants turned. Their smiles faltered. Nneka saw the look. She knew the look. It was the scan, the eyes flicking up and down, noting her skin color, her hair, her curves. It was the look that said, you don't belong here. The older assistant said, her tone stiffening. I see. I am not sure we have sizes that will accommodate the young ladies. Figure. Our samples are quite petite. Nneka wrapped her arms around herself. It's fine, Tae-Oh. We can go somewhere else. We aren't going anywhere, Tae-Oh said. His voice dropped. The temperature in the room plummeted. He walked over to the rack and pulled out a stunning emerald silk gown. Try this. Sir, the assistant interjected nervously. That is delicate silk. If she stretches it. Tae-Oh turned slowly. He looked at the woman. He didn't blink. If she stretches it, Tae-Oh said softly, I will buy the factory that made it and burn it down. Do not speak to her again. Just bring the dress to the fitting room." The assistant turned pale. "Yes, sir." "Immediately, sir." 10 minutes later, Nneka stepped out of the dressing room. The dress fit. It more than fit, it was devastating. The emerald silk hugged her curves like a second skin, contrasting beautifully with her deep complexion. The slit went up to her thigh. Her shoulders were bare. She looked at herself in the trifold mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked powerful. She looked regal. She stepped out onto the main floor. Tae-Oh was looking at his phone. He looked up. His phone slipped from his hand and clattered onto the marble floor. He didn't pick it up. He stood up slowly. His eyes were wide, dark, and completely unguarded. He walked toward her, ignoring the staff, ignoring the world. "Nneka," he breathed. He stopped in front of her. He reached out, his hand hovering over her waist, trembling slightly. "You look." He struggled for the word. "You look like a queen." "It's tight," Nneka whispered, her heart hammering because of the way he was looking at her. Like he wanted to devour her right there in the shop. "It's perfect," Tae-Oh growled. He turned to the terrified assistant. "We'll take it. And the red one. And the gold one. And send a jeweler to my house tonight. She needs diamonds." "Tae-Oh, that's too much." Nneka protested. He turned back to her, stepping close, his voice a low rumble for her ears only. "Nothing is too much. You gave me my life back. Let me drape you in the spoils of the war. If you are enjoying this transformation from assistant to queen, make sure you hit the like button. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if a mafia boss shut down a store just for you?" The high lasted for exactly 6 hours. That evening, the reality of Kwon Tae-Oh's life came crashing through the front door. Nneka was in the kitchen, organizing her spices, when the front door slammed open. "Get the medical kit. Now." It was Director Han. His voice was panicked. Nneka dropped a jar of turmeric. It shattered. She ran to the living room. Tae-Oh was leaning heavily on Han. His white shirt was soaked red. Not wine this time. Blood. Dark, viscous blood oozing from a slash across his ribs. "Oh my God." Nneka screamed, rushing forward. "Stay back." Han warned. "He's delirious. The adrenaline is still high." Tae-Oh looked up. His face was pale, sweat slicked, his hair plastered to his forehead. But when he saw Nneka, his eyes cleared. "Nneka," he wheezed. "Bedroom." "No." They dragged him to the master suite. They laid him on the bed. Han ripped the shirt open. It was a knife wound. Nasty, jagged, but clean. "The doctor is 20 minutes out," Han said, pressing a towel to the wound. "Too long," Tae-Oh gritted out, his teeth clenched in pain. "Stitch it." Han, "Do it." "I can't, boss. My hands are shaking too much." "I'll do it." Nneka stepped forward. Her voice was surprisingly steady, though her insides were liquid terror. "I'll do it. I used to sew my own clothes. I know how to do a stitch. Just give me the vodka and the needle." Han looked at her, then at Tae-Oh. Tae-Oh nodded once. 5 minutes later, the room was cleared. Just Nneka and Tae-Oh. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands scrubbed clean. She poured vodka over the wound. Tae-Oh hissed, his back arching off the mattress, muscles corded and straining. Sorry, she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "Just breathe, Tae-Oh. Look at me. Don't look at the blood." She threaded the needle. Her hands were steady. She began to sew. Every time the needle pierced his skin, he flinched, but he didn't make a sound. He just watched her. He watched her face, scrunched in concentration. He watched her biting her lip. "You're doing good," he gasped. "You're doing so good, Chakata." The praise hit her hard. Even in pain, he was focused on her. When she tied off the last stitch, she slumped back, exhaling a shaky breath. "Done. It's done." She reached for a wet cloth to wipe the blood from his abdomen. She wiped gently, tracing the lines of his abs, cleaning the red smears from his pale skin. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by something else. Tae-Oh caught her hand. His grip was iron. His skin was burning hot, a fever from the fight, or something else. "You have blood on you," he whispered. Nneka looked down. Her hands were stained with his blood. Her blouse had a smear of red on the cuff. "I'll wash it off," she said. "No." Tae-Oh sat up, wincing but ignoring the pain. He pulled her toward him. "Tae-Oh, your stitches." "Forget the stitches," he growled. He pulled her until she was kneeling between his legs on the edge of the bed. The height difference was gone. They were eye to eye. The smell of copper, vodka, and intense male pheromones filled the air. He lifted her blood-stained hand to his mouth. He kissed the knuckles. Then he licked the blood from her thumb. Nneka made a small, broken sound in the back of her throat. It was the most erotic, primal thing she had ever seen. "You saved me again," he murmured against her skin. "My healer. My witch." He moved his face to her neck. He inhaled deeply, shuddering. "I need you," he groaned. "Nneka, the pain. It's making the hunger worse. I can't hold back anymore." "Then don't," she whispered. She ran her hands into his hair, gripping the dark strands. "Don't hold back." That was the permission he needed. He flipped them. Despite his injury, he moved with terrifying speed. He pressed her back into the mattress, hovering over her. His eyes were blown black. He didn't undress her. He was too desperate for skin. He shoved her skirt up, his rough hands sliding over her thighs. "So soft," he praised, his voice a broken worship. "You are so soft, and I am. God, look at what you do to me." He took her hand and guided it between them. He was hard. Painfully, impossibly hard. "Does this feel dead to you?" he demanded, grinding against her hand. "No," Nneka breathed, arching into him. "You did this," he growled, kissing her jaw, her ear, her throat. "You own this. You own me." He kissed her then. It wasn't gentle. It was acclaiming. It tasted of vodka and desperation. His tongue swept into her mouth, demanding everything. Nneka wrapped her legs around his waist, careful of his wound, pulling him closer. For the first time in 8 years, the ice prince burned. And he burned hot enough to melt the world. The next morning, the bubble burst. Nneka woke up alone. The space beside her was cold. She sat up, a sense of dread pooling in her stomach. She showered, dressed, and walked out to the living room. The atmosphere had changed. The warm, domestic vibe was gone. The penthouse was filled with men in suits. Director Han looked grim. And sitting on the couch opposite Tae-Oh was an older man. He had a cane with a silver cobra head. He looked like a dried-up version of Tae-Oh, but with none of the honor. It was Elder Choi, Tae-Oh's uncle. The Viper. Nneka stopped in the hallway. "So it's true," Choi said, his voice like dry leaves. "You have a pet." Tae-Oh sat stiffly. He didn't look at Nneka. His face was a mask of stone again. The Ice Prince was back. "She is an employee," Tae-Oh said coldly. "She is my assistant." "An assistant who sleeps in your bed?" Choi chuckled darkly. "Don't lie to me, nephew. The rumors are everywhere. Kwon Tae-Oh, the eunuch, has finally risen. And all it took was a little foreign jungle fever." Nneka flinched. The slur hit her like a slap. Tae-Oh's hand clenched on his knee. "Watch your tongue, uncle, or I will cut it out." "Threats." Choi waved his hand dismissively. "You are weak, Tae-Oh. You always were. You let your emotions rule you. 8 years ago, it was that wife of yours. Now it's this girl." Choi stood up, tapping his cane on the floor. "The clan is restless," Choi announced. "They don't like that their leader is dependent on a foreigner. It makes us look compromised. Get rid of her, Tae-Oh, or we will do it for you." Choi turned and saw Nneka standing in the hallway. He smiled. It was a reptilian smile. "Goodbye, Miss Kim. I suggest you pack light." He walked out, his men trailing behind him. Silence descended on the penthouse. Nneka walked into the room. She was shaking. "Tae-Oh?" Tae-Oh didn't look up. He stared at the floor. "Pack your bags," he said. Nneka stopped. "What?" "You heard me," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Pack your bags. The deal is off. You have your money. Your grandmother is safe. Get out." Tae-Oh stopped. She walked toward him. "I know you're doing this because of what he said. I don't care about him. We can." "I said get out." Tae-Oh stood up and hurled a crystal glass against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 diamonds. He turned to her. His eyes weren't angry. They were terrified. But he masked it with cruelty. "It was a transaction, Nneka," he lied. "I needed to see if my body worked. It works. I don't need the battery anymore. I can hire a professional for half the price and none of the headache." Nneka recoiled as if he had slapped her. "You don't mean that." Last night was biology," he sneered. "Don't mistake lust for love. You are a distraction. And I have work to do." He turned his back on her. "Han." Escort Miss Kim to her apartment. Ensure she takes nothing that belongs to the clan. Tae-Oh, please, Nneka whispered, tears streaming down her face. Don't do this. He didn't turn around. He stood rigid, his fists clenched so hard his palms were bleeding. Go, he whispered. Nneka stared at his back for a long moment. She realized then that he wasn't rejecting her. He was saving her. But it didn't hurt any less. Fine, she choked out. Goodbye, Ice Prince. I hope you enjoy the cold. She grabbed her purse and ran for the elevator. As the doors closed, Tae-Oh collapsed onto the sofa, burying his head in his hands. A single, ragged sob tore from his throat. Forgive me, he whispered to the empty room. Please forgive me. Nneka didn't go home. She couldn't. The apartment would feel too small, too quiet. She walked the streets of Itaewon, blinding herself with the neon lights, letting the rain hide her tears. She felt hollowed out, used. She turned down a narrow alleyway, taking a shortcut to the subway station. She didn't hear the van. It was electric. Silent. It pulled up beside her. The side door slid open. Before she could scream, a bag was thrown over her head. Strong hands grabbed her waist. Got her, a voice growled. No. She screamed, kicking and thrashing. Tae-Oh. T-O-H. Something sharp pricked her neck. A sedative. The world went black. Her last thought was of green eyes and the smell of rain. Back at the penthouse, Tae-Oh was pouring his third glass of whiskey. He was trying to drown the memory of her face. His phone rang. It wasn't Han. It was an unknown number. He answered. Speak. Nephew, Elder Choi's voice crackled over the line. You didn't listen. I told you to get rid of her. But you just sent her back into the wild. Tae-Oh froze. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. Where is she? Tae-Oh whispered. The demon was waking up. She is with us, Choi laughed. We are at the old docks. Warehouse 4. Come alone, Tae-Oh. If I see one police car, one enforcer. Well, she is a pretty girl. It would be a shame if the men had their turn before we kill her. The line went dead. Tae-Oh stood there for a second. The silence in the room was absolute. Then he moved. He didn't call Han. He didn't call the police. He walked to his safe. He punched in the code. Inside lay a matte black handgun and a Japanese Tonto blade. He holstered the gun. He slid the blade into his belt. He walked to the mirror. The man looking back wasn't the CEO. It wasn't the Ice Prince. It was a monster. A monster who had just realized that they had taken the only thing that kept his heart beating. I'm coming, Nneka, he growled. He walked out the door. He didn't take the elevator. He took the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. Tonight, Seoul was going to burn. The Incheon docks smelled of rotting fish, diesel fuel, and imminent death. Rain lashed against the corrugated metal roof of Warehouse 4, creating a deafening roar that masked the sound of Nneka's ragged breathing. She was tied to a steel chair in the center of the vast empty space. Her wrists were raw from the rope. Her cheek throbbed where one of the guards had backhanded her for screaming too loud. Elder Choi stood in front of her, leaning on his silver-headed cane. He looked like a grandfather, harmless and frail, until you looked into his eyes. They were dead. You have spirit, Choi observed, circling her. I give you that. Most women would have passed out by now. But you just glare. My grandmother hits harder than your goons. Nneka spat, blood staining her teeth. And she's 80. Choi chuckled dryly. A sharp tongue. No wonder my nephew liked you. He always did have a taste for dangerous things. He stopped in front of her, poking her shin with his cane. It is a pity, really. You are quite beautiful, in an exotic sort of way. If this were a different time, I might have kept you for myself. But Tae-Oh needs to learn a lesson. He needs to learn that a king cannot have a weakness. I'm not his weakness, Nneka said, her voice cracking. He threw me out. He doesn't care about me. Oh, child. Choi shook his head pityingly. He didn't throw you out because he didn't care. He threw you out because he cares too much. And that is why he is coming. And that is why he will die tonight. He checked his gold pocket watch. He is late. Perhaps I overestimated him. Creak. The sound wasn't loud, but it cut through the noise of the rain instantly. The massive sliding metal door at the far end of the warehouse groaned. Every head in the room turned. There were 20 men. 20 armed enforcers holding bats, knives, and guns. They all faced the darkness of the open door. Nothing happened. Just the rain falling in sheets against the asphalt outside. "Check it," Choi ordered his lieutenant. Two men walked toward the door, guns raised. They stepped out into the rain. 1 second passed. 2 seconds. Then a sound. Wet. Squishy. The sound of a melon being dropped from a height. The two men didn't come back. Instead, a shadow stepped into the light. Kwon Tae-Oh didn't look human. He was soaked to the bone, his black shirt clinging to his chest. His hair hung in his eyes. He wasn't holding a gun. He was holding a tanto blade in his right hand, the steel gleaming under the industrial floodlights. Blood, bright, fresh red, dripped from the tip of the blade to the floor. Drip, drip, drip. He didn't run. He didn't yell. He just walked. One steady, terrifying step after another. "Kill him!" Choi screamed, his composure cracking. "Kill him now!" The warehouse erupted. 5 men charged him with bats. Tae-Oh didn't break stride. He ducked the first swing with a fluidity that looked like water. He drove the hilt of his knife into the attacker's throat. Crush. The man dropped. The second man swung. Tae-Oh caught his arm, twisted it until the bone snapped with a sickening pop, and shoved him into the path of the third man. It wasn't a fight. It was a slaughter. Tae-Oh moved with the efficiency of a machine and the brutality of a beast. He was silent. He didn't grunt. He didn't shout. He just dismantled them. A gunshot rang out. A bullet grazed Tae-Oh's shoulder. He didn't even flinch. He threw the knife. It spun through the air and embedded itself in the shooter's shoulder. The man screamed and dropped the gun. Tae-Oh kept walking. He reached the center of the room. The floor was littered with groaning bodies. Only Choi and 2 bodyguards remained standing near Nneka. Choi pulled a pistol from his coat. He pressed the barrel against Nneka's temple. "Stop!" Choi shrieked, his voice trembling. "One more step, Tae-Oh, and I paint the wall with her brains." Tae-Oh stopped. He stood 10 feet away. His chest was heaving. Blood, some his, mostly theirs, splattered his face. He looked at Nneka. His eyes weren't the eyes of the Ice Prince anymore. They were burning with a fire so intense it felt like it could singe her skin from across the room. "Let her go, Uncle," Tae-Oh said. His voice was calm. Terrifyingly calm. "You are broken," Choi yelled, pressing the gun harder against Nneka's skin. She whimpered, squeezing her eyes shut. "You threw away the clan for this. This foreign whore." "She is not a whore," Tae-Oh said softly. He took a step forward. "She is my wife." Nneka's eyes snapped open. Choi blinked. "What?" "In my heart." Tae-Oh touched his chest, his blood-stained hand leaving a mark over his heart. "She is my wife. She is the matriarch of the Cheilsung clan, and you are holding a gun to the queen." "You're insane," Choi whispered. "I'm going to kill her. I'm going to." Nneka, Tae-Oh said, locking eyes with her. "Duck." He didn't wait for her to process it. He didn't wait to see if she trusted him. He just moved. He dropped to his knees, sliding across the slick concrete floor like a baseball player sliding into home. At the same time, he pulled the matte black handgun from his waistband. Nneka threw herself forward, slumping as low as the ropes would allow. Bang. Bang. 2 shots. The first bullet hit the bodyguard on the left. The second bullet hit Elder Choi squarely in the center of his forehead. The old man looked surprised. He stood there for a second, the gun slipping from his fingers, before he crumpled to the ground like a pile of dirty laundry. The silence that followed was heavy. Tae-Oh stayed on his knees, his gun still raised, scanning the room for threats. When he was sure nothing was moving, he lowered the weapon. He scrambled toward her. He wasn't the cool, collected boss anymore. He was frantic. "Nneka," he gasped, holstering the gun and pulling a pocket knife to slash her ropes. "Nneka, look at me. Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" The ropes fell away. Nneka didn't speak. She just launched herself at him. She wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his soaked, bloody shoulder. She sobbed a loud, ugly, releasing sob. Tae-Oh caught her. He squeezed her so tight she thought her ribs might crack, but she didn't care. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling her scent, trying to replace the smell of death with the smell of rain. "I got you," he whispered, rocking her back and forth. "I got you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I sent you away. I thought I was protecting you. I was so stupid." "You idiot," Nneka cried, hitting his chest weakly. "You stupid, noble idiot. Don't you ever leave me again." Tae-Oh pulled back. He cupped her face in his hands. His thumbs smeared blood on her cheeks, but neither of them cared. He looked at her like she was the only holy thing in a godless world. Never, he vowed. I will burn this city to ash before I let you go again. And then, surrounded by unconscious bodies and the sound of rain, he kissed her. It wasn't like the kiss in the bedroom. That was lust. This was a blood pact. It was deep, desperate, and full of promises. He kissed her like he was breathing air into her lungs. He pulled back, resting his forehead against hers. Let's go home, he whispered. We are reaching the end of our journey, and if your heart is racing as fast as mine, please smash that like button. It helps us bring more intense stories like this to you. And stick around, because the ending. You are going to love the ending. 6 months later, the grand ballroom of the Seoul Shilla Hotel was packed. It was the annual Peace Gala, where the heads of the major conglomerates and the shadow families met to discuss territories and truces. The air was thick with tension. Rumors had been swirling for months. Rumors that the Cheilsung clan had a new leader. Or rather, a renewed one. The double doors opened. The room went silent. Kwon Tae-Oh walked in. He looked better than he had in a decade. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly, his hair styled back, his face sharp and healthy. The cold, dead look in his eyes was gone, replaced by a quiet, dangerous confidence. But no one was looking at him. They were looking at the woman on his arm. Nneka Kim. She wasn't hiding in the shadows. She wasn't wearing a server's uniform. She was wearing gold. A floor-length gown of shimmering gold sequins that looked like liquid metal against her deep skin. Her hair was huge, a glorious, unapologetic crown of curls adorned with diamond pins. She walked with her head high, her hand resting possessively on Tae-Oh's forearm. She looked like a goddess. She looked like a queen. A ripple of whispers went through the room. Is that her? The foreigner? I heard she saved his life. I heard she runs the logistics division now. A brave, or stupid, rival boss approached them. It was Mr. Park from the Busan Syndicate. Mr. Kwon. Park bowed, eyeing Nneka with a sneer. And gasped. I must say, it is bold of you to bring your entertainment to a formal event. The silence in the room became suffocating. People held their breath. 6 months ago, Tae-Oh would have ignored it. 3 months ago, he would have broken the man's nose. Today, Tae-Oh didn't even look at Mr. Park. He looked down at Nneka. He smiled, a genuine warm smile that transformed his face. My love, Tae-Oh said softly. Mr. Park seems confused. Would you like to correct him? Nneka smiled. It was dazzling. Actually, darling, she said in perfect, crisp Korean, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. I think he'll let his bank account correct him. Mr. Park, didn't your shipping vessels get held up at customs in Lagos this morning? Something about incorrect paperwork? Park's face went pale. How do you know that? Because I made the call, Nneka said sweetly, stepping forward. I manage the international routes now. And I don't like people who are rude to my husband. Park stumbled back. Husband? Tae-Oh lifted his left hand. Nneka lifted hers. Matching gold bands. Wife, Tae-Oh corrected, his voice dark with pride. She is not entertainment, Park. She is the boss. He wrapped his arm around Nneka's waist, pulling her flush against him. Now, Tae-Oh dismissed the man with a glare. Get out of my sight before she decides to seize your assets in Incheon too. Mr. Park fled. The music started again. The crowd dispersed, terrified and impressed. Tae-Oh led Nneka onto the dance floor. He pulled her close, swaying to the slow jazz. You were terrifying, he murmured in her ear. It turned me on. Everything turns you on lately, Nneka teased, resting her head on his shoulder. Can you blame me? He ran his hand down her back, resting it on the curve of her hip. I have 8 years to make up for. He spun her around, dipping her low. The world blurred around them. Are you happy? He asked, searching her face. It's a dangerous life, Nneka. People stare. People hate. Nneka looked up at him. She saw the man who had given her everything. The man who had faced down an army for her. The man who looked at her afro and saw a crown. Let them stare, she whispered, pulling him down for a kiss. They're just jealous that the dragon belongs to me. Tae-Oh laughed, kissing her deeply right in the middle of the ballroom, not caring who saw. Forever, he promised against her lips. Forever, she agreed. The ice prince was gone. The dragon had risen. And the woman in gold held the leash. And that is the story of the cold dragon of Seoul. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of emotion, danger, and spicy romance, please subscribe to the channel. We have so many more stories coming your way. Leave a comment below with the word gold if you made it to the very end. I'm your narrator, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay safe and stay spicy.